So I saw The Whale a couple of weeks ago, and I wanted to provide my opinion on it after having had a few weeks to kind of process it and really think about what I wanted to say. So you may have heard of The Whale because of both it being the comeback of Brendan Fraser, and I would argue Darren Aronofsky as well, and also because there's some controversy around it. People seem to be very polarized, very mixed on whether they like this film, and a lot of the controversy is really unwarranted, in my opinion. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, The Whale concerns Brendan Fraser's character, who has a severe overeating disorder. Very clearly, he's 600 pounds, and to be honest, he doesn't look 600 pounds even with all the prosthetics. He looks more like 400 pounds, but I think they did a pretty good job considering, their limitations. Obviously, you can't make somebody look 600 pounds, without it, unless it's like, one of those Eddie Murphy fat suits or something. I'm sorry. But overall, I like the film. I have one core issue with it, which I will talk about shortly. The film concerns about him trying to get in touch with his daughter because he's pretty much facing a terminal diagnosis. I mean, at that weight, if anybody's at that weight, you're gonna die, especially if it's an eating disorder and it's not just some biological abnormality, So the problem a lot of people had with this film was that it was fat phobic. Now, I think the idea of fat phobic is pretty ridiculous. A lot of people are trying to claim that overweight people, especially overweight women, for some reason they don't care about overweight men, are an oppressed group. They're even comparing it to racism and sexism, which obviously it's not. I should note, it's especially in America, overweight and obese people are 75% of the population. So, how are you an oppressed minority? It's like when American Christians say they're oppressed, right? You're 75% of the population. What are you talking about? I get that, overweight people receive a lot of bullying, and that sucks. But honestly, most people receive a lot of bullying for whatever their difference is. And that doesn't necessarily make you an oppressed group just because people are mean to you. I mean, it certainly can in some cases, but there's no fat people hate crimes, okay? There's no fat people concentration camps. Although that does sound like a good idea. I'm joking. There's no, keep out the fat people. There's not really any slurs against fat people. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't think fat people are oppressed, and to say whether the movie was fat phobic or not, people are saying it's fat phobic because it's depicting somebody who is obese as having a miserable life. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, and obviously this doesn't apply to all obese people. You can be obese and not dying. I mean, you'll still be unhealthy, but you're not dying. It depends on how obese you are. But I'm sorry to say, somebody who's at 600 pounds is going to be dying. I mean, even if they're not that way because of an eating disorder, even if they're that way because of a medical condition, unless it's some just really weird biological quirk, they're going to be dying. Same thing if you're 60 pounds, right? Very, 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 very few people can naturally be at that weight and live for more than 5 years. It just doesn't happen. And this is a note that I want to bring up. There's been quite a few films depicting people who are morbidly underweight, right? And sometimes even, they won't just use prosthetics. The actor will actually go full method. Looking at you, a certain actor.
I know who I am. I'm a dude playing a dude disguised as another dude.
And lose all the weight for that. Now, obviously, they can have Brendan Fraser gain all the weight for that, but you get what I'm saying. But these are movies like The Machinist, Joker, Black Swan, another Aronofsky movie, To the Bone, which was specifically about eating disorders. I'm trying to think. There was another one that I was thinking about. Oh yeah, The Sixth Sense. Like, there's a lot of films like that in which people are depicted as being morbidly underweight and living miserable lives. And I can say, even though I was never morbidly underweight, when I was pretty severely underweight for my general size, I was not happy. I was extremely depressed. I mean, I wasn't dying, but if you are at a weight where you're dying, you're gonna be extremely depressed. You're not gonna be living a good life. You know, that's just what it is. And we don't call those movies skinny phobic for depicting morbidly underweight people living a terrible life, right? We don't. Because we understand as a society that people who are at that weight need help. And the sad thing is that people who are way overweight, we don't recognize them as needing help. We recognize them as lazy, or in the case of fat activism, we recognize them as oppressed. You know, we don't take any responsibility for their disorders. We don't understand that they're sick. And I think that's really a point that's been missed with The Whale. Now I'll get into a little more of the plot, a little more spoilers, and I'll get to my core issue with The Whale. Overall, I thought it was very well acted. I thought the cinematography was beautiful. I mean, for all the parts that were, like, you know, showing them on the beach and stuff. I thought, you know, the score was really well done. It wasn't by Clint Mansell. Unfortunately, Clint Mansell is one of my favorite film scores. But it was all really well done. The main issue I have regards on the plot. So it's revealed that Brendan Fraser's character Charlie is gay, right? And that he basically ran off with a man and left his family, and his weight represents his guilt around that, right? And it's later revealed that his boyfriend, because of the pressures of a religious organization, like a born-again Christian organization that was very homophobic, because that pressure around him, he committed suicide, the boyfriend. Now, you might be thinking, well, Matthew, what's the problem with all this? The problem is that the boyfriend wasn't just someone that Charlie met. It was one of his high school students, and Charlie is middle-aged. And it's never specified exactly how old the boyfriend, Alan, I think his name was. It's never specified how old Alan was. He could have been anywhere from 14 to 18. But in any case, like, that's either statutory rape or it's still creepy.
Isn't that corrupt? Isn't that corrupt? Isn't that cheating the public? Isn't that betraying the public's trust? Isn't that immoral?
Right? It's still creepy as hell. Like, that a middle-aged person is creeping on an 18-year-old or potentially even younger. Like, and unfortunately, like, you know, it's not addressed at all, of the age difference. And I think, I mean, I'm not blaming Darren Aronofsky, because this was based on a play, and I'm sure it was written in the play, so I'm not saying that you know, it's Darren Aronofsky's fault. But, like, you know, condoning statutory rape is pretty much become a common theme in movies. Like, for example, in Call Me By Your Name, you know, there's a lot of controversy over that because of the age gap. And, you know, even Licorice Pizza was about a relationship between a 15-year-old and a 25-year-old. And the messed up part about all of these movies is that it depicts the younger party, usually a young man, like, wanting the relationship. And, you know, that is how statutory rape or relationships usually work. But the implication in the movie is that, like, oh, he wanted it, so therefore it's not an issue. There's nothing predatory about it. And, you know, unfortunately, this is just something that's condoned in our society, especially when it's young boys who are the victims, and especially when it's older women who are the perpetrators. I mean, even in gay relationships, it seems to be depicted that oh, like he wanted this, it's not sexual abuse. And I understand also that, I mean, I saw this video saying that, I saw, Dr. K, or whatever you call him, the healthy gamer doctor. He said that actually, in any case of sexual assault, 1/3 of people are not traumatized. And so that's especially common in statutory rape cases, that a lot of people aren't traumatized. But that doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it okay for the older person to be predatory, because you never know. Those relationships can be devastating towards the victims. And so I really don't understand why whoever wrote, the original script for The Whale didn't just have Charlie date someone his own age. Like, it was so simple. You really could have, I mean, maybe it was to make him more of a flawed character, but I'm really not certain why, that was the decision to go with, or why people aren't bringing this up more. So I hope you guys enjoyed that review, and thanks for watching.